Let's talk about using some kind of a video application to help we improve our casting. You know, I use HudlTechnique, which I think is, to me, there's other ones too that you can use, but this, you got a free application, you can download it for nothing. There's an elite program that is a little bit more sophisticated, but I really never found any need for it. The HudlTechnique program is something I can use by myself. I just set my iPad up on a lawn chair, and I don't need a fancy tripod or anything else. I can videotape myself. So we're going to talk a little bit about that and talk about the applications that are available through the HudlTechnique. The first thing, when you're shooting a video, make sure you have a good background. That's the first thing. The best background that I found is a darker background, like a dark green bunch of trees or bushes or hedges. And the next thing is, if the background is in the shade and the fly line is in the light, that's the best possible conditions, because the fly line then is especially if it's one of the orange fly lines, it really glows and is really very good contrast against the background. So what you're really looking for is a fly line in the light and the dark background. The other thing is, a lot of people make a mistake trying to shoot too much. There's no reason to be able to have to shoot the entire cast oftentimes. Let me just show you something. If this is my line right here, and I've finished a back cast, let's say, or a forward cast, it doesn't matter. If this is my frame right here, you can see that there's plenty. I can see if I've got a good loop. I'll be able to know if this is an open loop. I can see it right here. I don't need to take this fly and have it all the way back here. That's not going to be necessary for me to see what's happening. If I want to see that fly all the way back here, then I could just shoot this part of the frame from here back to the back to see, for instance, if I have a proper pause or if I'm waiting too long and my line is dipping or whatever. But you can shoot a half a line at a time. If I'm just interested in a person's hand, I can zoom in on the hand or just the body. I can zoom in on the front part, the back part, or oftentimes this is all I really use. Maybe a little bit wider out to here so I get this much of the front cast as well. So make sure that when you're doing this, you're thinking about the fact that you don't have to shoot the entire line. If a guy's shooting 75 feet and you're trying to get the 75 feet in the back and the 75 feet in the front, number one, you've got to be about 80 feet away from the person or even more to be able to get that whole picture inside of one frame. And number two, you're not going to be able to see it unless that line is super, super bright. You're not going to see any kind of, and you can see that on my videos. Whenever we pan out, you can see that we lose a lot of detail. You're just getting a general idea. If we're trying to get you to see something specific, we're panning in. So the background, the light, and the angle and the size of your frame, what you're trying to take in, are all very important. One other thing, you can use this program, and I'm going to show in a minute. We're going to go through and actually show you a bunch of the applications. But you can use this program. You can save stuff, you can duplicate stuff, you can share stuff. One of the things I do with a lot of my students is they can shoot a video, they can email it to me, and then I can get on a video, they can get on a video, and at the same time I can say, hey, what I want you to do is go to 4.87 seconds. And it breaks down into 1/100th of a second. So we can see exactly the same spot in 1/100th of a second, and we may be 2,000 miles apart. And then we can work with each other. But if you're working by yourself, this is an unbelievably valuable tool for you to see what kinds of loops you have. Both Molly Semenek and Macaulay Lord are the people who basically taught me, or at least convinced me, to be able to use this more effectively. And I think technology can oftentimes be overused. I've been a product of that, I guess, anticipation of how technology is going to solve all our problems, and I still think the coach is the most important person, and the videotape is in the tool. It's a tool. If you know how to use it properly, you use it effectively, it can be very valuable. But I do think this is something every casting person who's trying to improve their casting ought to learn how to do. So what we're going to do now is we're going to take a break. We're going to zoom in on a couple of videos, and we're going to show you some of the different things that the video can do. Okay, so let's take a look at this. This is my iPad, and I would suggest you use an iPad instead of an iPhone, although an iPhone can certainly work. It's pretty tough, especially when the light's bad. So we're in a fairly bright room, and we can see this pretty good. That's why I like the iPad better. But let's take a look at the gross features on it first, the big features, and then we'll get to the smaller ones. The first thing, if you look down in this corner down here, you're going to see a thing that says slow-mo. If you touch that, it comes up one full speed, half speed, 1/4 speed, and 1/8 speed. So if I want to watch that at 1/4 speed, I can just hit 1/4 speed, and now you're going to see this little bar start to move, and this is going to be 1/4 speed. So that's going to, now let's say I want to move it because so right there. Now if I want to freeze it, I just freeze it, and I can freeze it right here. So another thing I can do is, instead of having any speed at all, if I take this bar and I move it with my finger, I can move it all the way to where I want it and stop it where I want it. Now let's say I want to move it by 1/100th of a second. This stops, and you can see that maybe it's kind of tough to see, but it's 4.35 seconds into the video. If I want to move it, I can move it like this. That's 4.36. Now I can move it as slow as I want in 1 frame at a time and freeze it. So now I've frozen it at 4.48 by moving this bar down here with all these little ruler marks on it. So if you use a ruler mark, you can move it 1/100th of a second at a time. If you push this big box, then you can move it quicker. Or you can just do it holistically by pushing this. If you don't like 1/4 and you want to go full speed, you can just push full speed. So that's that. Now let's take another look at this. Is another thing I think is pretty cool. This here, upper right hand corner, you're going to see a pencil. If you hit the pencil with your finger, a bunch of different symbols come up. This is a squiggly line, this is an angle, a circle, another squiggly line, and then these are all angles in different colors. So let's say I want to make a squiggly line. I'm going to hit this, and now I want to make it red. So I push the red button over here. Now what should happen is, if I move my finger along here, I can make a squiggly line. That's 1, this is 2, and 3. Now if you go back over here, if I want to undo just the last thing I did, in this corner there's an undo button. Just push that, and all of a sudden the 3 disappears. Push that, the 2 disappears. Push that, the 1 disappears, and push that, the whole thing disappears. Let's say I did a bunch of stuff and I want it to all disappear at the same time. I can just hit clear, and it's all going to disappear. So up in this corner, you're going to see clear. So now, let's say that I want to mark something here. I'm going to just take this angle here, and I'm going to do that, and I want this angle in yellow. So what I'm going to do is, I'm going to measure, for instance, I'm moving my fly line back and forth, and you can see I go to here, and that's my stop position. Just as if you look right there, just about, you can see this, they're starting to form a loop. That means my rod is stopped right here. So at this point in time, I can draw a little angle like this right to my hand, and I can make this thing go to here, and then we're going to move forward. So I'm drifting, you can see the drift. Now here comes the forward stroke. Right there, you can start to see the rod stopped at this point, so I can move this. Whoops, I needed to do it all at the same time. But what you can do is you can move this angle over here. So let's just do that again. So we started with that. So we're going to clear that last thing. Undo, just like this. We can clear the whole thing. And now we're going to go back to this again. We'll use green this time. And so what we had is this here. This angle was here. Move this over here. And this angle was here. So there, I know that I have a 98, right down here it's going to say there's a 98-degree angle. So you can start measuring casting arc with this tool. Another thing, so let's clear it. Whoops, hit the wrong button there, hold on. We'll get back to that in a second. So now we're back to here, we're going to do this. And we're going to use blue this time. So now what we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and do this. I'm going to go a little slower, and I want to show the stop position. I would mark the stop position. I can mark the stop position right here. And then you can see how much I drifted. You can see the stop position and then the drift. then I can start to talk about, look at this. When I get back to the original start position, you can see my rod. Now I can go ahead, and if I want to put a different color on it, I can say, okay, look at my rod. My rod is actually starting to bend right here. So my rod is starting to bend at the stop position. I can mark things like you can tell a person, you need to stop your rod here and here. Or you can measure, even it's a really good thing for tailing loops. Your rod tip, you'll see your rod, do my rod tip in a different color. So I'll do rod tip in red. Let's say your rod tip does this. You can actually slow motion. You can watch your rod tip. That's why if you'll notice on a lot of my tapes, I have a piece of white yarn on the tip of my rod. I can see the rod tip. I could also see, let's clear all that. What if the rod tip does this? There's a tailing loop, and you can see that yarn dip and come back up again. So this can help you really, I think it's very valuable in helping you analyze casts, especially fine motor stuff that you can't see with the naked eye. You wouldn't be able to see where exactly that happened. The same thing, if you look back on this, we'll clear this. Oops, go back to this again. So now take a look at this. This is kind of interesting. If I come to here, and now I start forward, I can actually see my rod. You can see my rod bend right here, and you can go back and forth and show somebody the rod bending. What happens if the rod doesn't bend right here? What happens if the rod is up? So you can see the major rod bend by the time I get to 12 o'clock. There's serious rod bend in here. What if I got to 12 o'clock and there was very little rod bend? That's probably an inappropriate application of power or creep. So then you could go back here and you could see which it was inappropriate application of power or creep. So in this particular case, look at that loop. So if you look at that loop, what happened here? Let's keep going back and see. I dropped my rod too far in the back. I punched my fly line down in the back. See what I did? Punched it down in the back. Now it straightens out pretty good, but still, I've driven it down. So you can point to a person and just say, if I'm going to come back to this spot, we'll use me as an example right here. Where should I have stopped? Should have stopped right here. So I come back to here and I'm going to draw a line again. I'm going to say, man, you should have stopped right here. If you'd have stopped your rod right there, instead, look what you did. You drove it that far down. And look what happened. You drove your line down in that direction. And now look at that loop. The forward loop is much better. You stopped exactly right and watch. Perfect forward loop. So this is something that can help you a ton. There's one other feature I'd like to show you that I really like using. We'll try this again. We're going to compare. So we're going to compare to our own video. You can also do it with a pro or somebody else's, but we're going to compare it to our own video. So we're going to do ahead and let's just say we compare it to this one. Okay, so now we've got two different videos side by side. So I'm going to make this one move to the backstroke. Right. Now let's look at the difference in the two loops. If I were to hit this thing slow motion, let's get this thing at 1/8 speed. Okay. Now watch, and I can stop at any moment. So I can compare the two loops. And I can compare side by side two people casting simultaneously. And you can see this person here, I'm going a little faster here than I am here. Because those are both the same speed. That's a nice back loop on this one. This one's a nice back loop. So you can kind of see, you can compare two different casts. So that's something else you can do on here. So those are all important. You can also, let's get back to the beginning. Let me show you one other thing you can do. Let's just discard. Okay, I can get to a video like this, and let's say I'm going to put this up now. What I can do is add a comment. So I could write in here, good example of dropping the rod too far, too big a casting arc on a stop position in the rear. And then I can tag it with my name or somebody else's name, and I can also share this thing. So I'm done here. I can also share this. So I can take this and
share it. Let's see. Oops, can't remember where the heck I go to share. There we go, share right here. You hit this up in this corner. When you select the video here, hit these three lines right up here in this corner. And then that'll take share. And then you can share it, and it'll tell you where. You want to share it with a team, email, or wherever. So there you go. It's a really excellent program. I would suggest you use it quite a bit. And I want to show you one more thing real quick before we forget. Okay, I just put this on a lawn chair, and I put something heavy on this part of my iPad, and I just hang it off the lawn chair and show it towards the front. It's pretty simple to do. Let's see if I can get, I got to get rid of this first off, done. Okay, so let's say I'm going to shoot over on this left-hand corner. There's a round button. All you do is you hit that round button, and now you've got a round button on the right. If you want to shoot that direction, it's just like a camera on an iPhone. It's the same thing. You can shoot, now it's shooting towards me, so now I'm shooting myself out in that direction. If I want to shoot, now I can just press this and I come back, press it again, and then down in this lower left-hand corner is the most recent video you shot. So if I push that, I'm going to get my video and I can start doing my thing. So I hope this gave you a little idea of what you can do with a video, and I would say if you don't have somebody to watch you, this is amazingly effective. It works really good. Once you get yourself an iPad, you download the program for free. I mean, it's going to be, you can use it for 1,000,000 times, and you can, videotape yourself for 2 hours without running out of battery. I'm telling you, it's an awesome tool. So if you don't have a partner, there's no excuse for not being able to know what your back loop looks like. Hope this helps. Bye-bye.